Novice and Vinegar Day 71 arm wrestling day. So I recorded this last night and then I kind of just passed out because I was tired because I'm sick. So I'm rating this tomorrow, or today rather, and uploading it today. So this was done yesterday, but anyway, I was doing 1 rep maxes today, or yesterday rather, on my side pressure. So I wanted to see where my side pressure 1 rep max was at. And I ended up getting 52 kilos, which I was quite happy with, really. In the last year, I've made quite tremendous gains on my side pressure. And last year is basically how long I've been doing pressure training for. Maybe a little under a year or maybe a little over, I'm not sure. I'm terrible with time frames. But 52 kilos was good. Todd Hutchinson, my favorite arm wrestler, side pressure king. His whole idea is anything over 45 kilos is competitive level arm wrestler. Not necessarily professional or elite or anything, but if your side pressure is, over 45 kilos, you are now currently in a competitive stage. So I take that with a grain of salt because I'd assume that's under the assumption that the rest of your chain is also competitive, which my hands and pronation aren't. I mean, they might be, I don't know. It's hard to tell. And obviously lifts don't speak everything because you can have all these tremendous lifts and then not have great technique or some other circumstances that allow someone weaker than you to beat you. But until I get down into a arm wrestling gym, I will never know, really, obviously. I mean, granted, by the end of next year or kind of in a year from now, I want to be side pressuring the whole stack, which is 70 kilos. And that's the goal. In a year from now, basically, side pressure, 1 rep max, 70 kilos. At that point, it would be safe to say that my side pressure would be able to override certain people's hands. Not everyone, obviously, because, if someone has a good side pressure plus a great hand, then obviously, even if your side pressure is better than them, they're still going to roll you out quite easily. But if I had a 70 kilo side pressure, 1 rep max, I think I'd be able to probably hang with some decently good arm wrestlers, so long as they don't have crazy big leverages or anything. Someone similar, comparable height, hand weight to me, it would be difficult task to go through 70 kilos of side pressure. So yeah, that's the goal. But 52 so far, not too bad. And obviously, I'm also trying to get my hands up as much as I can. And I'd just say my lifts aren't too bad. Like, I have strong hands. It's just that from a leverage perspective, they suck. So all the strength in the world means nothing if the guy you're arm wrestling has 2 inch wider hands than you. So, yeah, I bought a car recently. I really didn't have a reason for a car really at all. I still don't really. But I was getting to the point where I'm like, there's certain things I want to do and it requires a car to do. So I decided to get a car. And one of the biggest reasons was I want to get down basically an hour away from me, which is where a decently large arm wrestling gathering is once or twice a week. So I might be going down there, might even vlog it. Who knows? Depends on what I want to do. But yeah, it'll be good to go down there and see where I'm at. Because so far, the only people I've ever arm wrestled have been people in pubs or bars. So I don't actually have a single clue of where I really am in the scheme of actually trained arm wrestlers. Like, I've arm wrestled big, powerful dudes in pubs, big roiders, big tradies with crazy big, strong hands who are typically way stronger than the roiders actually. So, I've arm wrestled some genetic freaks and won pretty convincingly in bars. Obviously, you've got to take that with a massive grain of salt, but because these guys don't know what they're doing, they're not arm wrestling specific training. They're just really good genetically gifted guys, and it's fun. It's great, and I fucking love arm wrestling. It's fun to do. That's why I basically bought a car, because I haven't got access to that unless I go to like the pub, and even then it's hit or miss because the pubs up here, one, I don't really like going out drinking all that much because it's just not good for your gains, mental state, etc. And two, you go out sometimes and there wouldn't be any of those kind of like, there'd be no men out basically. It'd just be like fucking, I live in a pretty liberal town where there's a lot of kind of artsy, feminine dudes and, to each their own. But That is not my crowd, and those are not the kind of guys that are willing to arm wrestle you. So, that's part of why I stopped going out too, is because like there's just no men out in where I live. There's no men to hang out with, and when I'm hammered, I like to hang out with dudes. I like to hang out with blokes and just shoot the shit. I don't like hanging out with dudes who are talking about fucking Karl Marx or some shit. You know what I mean? It's just gay. So yeah, it's seldom when I go out, and sometimes dudes out there aren't really willing to arm wrestle, but it is fun. Especially, it's fun. Sorry, it's fun in pubs rather. If you go up to a dude, you say, "Hey mate, want to arm wrestle for a drink?" If he's a big, muscular dude, or a tradie, or just a dude with some testosterone, and he's had a few drinks, chances are he's gonna say yes, and you're gonna have a fun time. You're gonna meet a new dude. You're gonna meet a bro, and you're gonna arm wrestle, and you'll probably win, and then you get a free drink, and you get to drink for free all night because you're just going around arm wrestling dudes. And granted, you can actually beat them. Sometimes you'll run into some 6'7" Maori guy with hands the size of your feet, who'll fucking crush you. But most of the time, you should be able to beat him. And then it's like they're like, "Oh, dude, how do you do that?" Blah blah blah. And then part of the fun is then showing this guy how to do arm wrestling and how to pronate and cup, and albeit in a drunken stupor, because it's like, "Oh yeah, man," and then you got to grab his thumb high, and then you like, it's not the same as being sober, but it's fun. It's a fun way of having fun out, and I find a lot of gym bros don't. It's not their crowd a lot of times going out drinking, because it's just a bunch of degenerates that just drink all the time. You don't really get to meet people like yourself a lot of the time. So when you do, it's kind of like, oh, cool. This is a dude like me. I don't know where I'm going with this, but essentially, that's my only experience arm wrestling people is in pubs, and that's fun, but I can't do that very frequently. And it's obviously wouldn't be as fun as arm wrestling someone who really knows what they're doing on a proper padded table while you're sober. And ideally with people who are stronger than you and know more than you, who can show you some technical shit. Because, as I said, all the technique I've learned has just been from watching videos. And that's great and all, and I probably have more technique than the average person. But if I go into I can imagine when I first step into an arm wrestling gym, people, will be like, "Oh man, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong." So, it's obviously going to be a lot better when I get into an actual arm wrestling gym than fucking arm wrestling tradies at pubs. But anyway, so that will be cool. I might vlog that, not sure. We'll see. The only arm wrestling sort of meetup where I live is in an area that's very hot right now during summer, so that's going to be kind of lame, but it'll be worth it. And I also haven't, when I first started arm wrestling dudes in pubs, you have like this 3 to 4 week period, or more than that actually, way more than that, where it is agonizingly painful, especially when you first start, because you don't know what you're doing. And when you first start, you're not arm wrestling people who know what they're doing, you're going to do a lot of side pressure, and your elbow tendons and shoulders are going to feel like shit. So I kind of started by trial. I would get home after arm wrestling, like a bunch of tradies, and I'd be hammered, and I would be in like agonizing pain. I'd be like, "Fuck, this hurts so bad." Like one night I remember being nearly in tears at how unbelievably painful it was. Like my shoulder and elbow were just fucked, and they'd be fucked for days on end. So ideally you want to start in a controlled environment like a arm wrestling gym, where there are, semi-professional, professional, competitive, amateur, novice, but people that know what they're doing, who are stronger than you, who will be like, "Hey man, don't push through the elbow too much, just work on the pronation and the hand right now. Let's just do some hand work." Or if you are going to use your arm, let's go into a hook and use the bicep, rather than just trying to fucking shoulder press someone when you don't have any tendon or ligament strength, or basically not necessarily strength, but conditioning. Now, I've conditioned my elbows not through arm wrestling, because I don't have anyone arm wrestle, but I've conditioned it through the training. I do side presser training. So through that, I'm pretty confident that I could probably arm wrestle for a good while before the arm starts to ache. But yeah, like that was one of the things I noticed right away when I got into arm wrestling was that it hurts most in the elbows. And what is that from? That's from side pressure. Okay, I need to then condition that through the weights by doing side pressure training. And that significantly got rid of the pain. So a lot of times arm wrestlers will talk about how side pressure training, especially Devin Lorette will say, it's not required. It's a hand sport. And that's all good and well, and especially all good and well when you are a tall, lanky guy with long hands. But for a shorter guy with small hands, one, that's not good because, I don't have a hand. I don't have a hand to work with. And two, it's not good in general because you should train side pressure when you first start because it will condition your elbows. It will get rid of that pain. And I hear a lot of the times people say, not just Devin, like a lot of people will say you shouldn't start training side pressure at the start at all until you have the fundamentals down. And again, I disagree because, like, why not both? Learn the fundamentals while doing side pressure. That way, you will be able to condition the elbows in a controlled environment. Because if you're trying to train side pressure on the table, and again, I might be totally wrong here as someone who doesn't even fucking arm wrestle anyone, but just logic follows. It just seems highly logical to me to train it in your own time with the weights. That way, you can control the pain threshold. The main thing about side pressure isn't so much the strength of it; it's the pain threshold that your elbow can take. The structural integrity your elbow has. So when I trained my side pressure, when I first started, it wasn't what my strength could do. When I first started doing side pressure, I was doing 20 kilos for 5 sets of 5. And I could probably do more than that, but my fucking elbows, the tendon and the ligaments and the pain receptors couldn't. They were like, fuck no, you're not going up more weight than 20. That shit hurts, dude. So I just slowly made my way up. Now, it's safe to say I can do side pressure training at the max strength capacity, not my max pain capacity. It still hurts. Don't get me wrong. I'm pushing it to the limit now, where realistically you wouldn't need to do it if you had strong, powerful hands. But I'm overcompensating, so I'm still pushing it, and it still hurts to this day, but nowhere as much as it when it first started. It hurts, but I'm able to push through the pain barrier and get to the point where I'm actually maxing out the bone structure and musculature. So. Yeah, I'd say if you're first starting, you really should be training side pressure on the weights a little bit just to condition your elbows. That way it won't hurt so much when you're actually arm wrestling humans, because it fucking hurts, dude. So yeah, that's basically my whole fucking rant, I guess. I don't even know if that was a rant. I'm all over the place today. I added a new movement today. I'm doing sort of... so I did the PVC pipe pronation, which feels really good. And then I'm doing this one, which emulates more of what a hand would feel like. Because a hand obviously doesn't feel like a handle. You get more of a stimulus through the thumb than the palm in a pronation movement. So I decided I'd do this too. But with this movement, I'm not really worrying about the form, the weight, the rep range. What I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to basically just pick a random weight and just kind of just basically max out, just go as many reps as I can with the form, however the fuck I want to. I'm not going to track it at all. I'm just going to be totally trying to focus on contracting the pronator and kind of maybe even simulating the movement pattern or the technique that you would do on a table. So yeah, total freestyle that is, and that's one thing I'll be doing from now on. And then I'm doing my reverse curls. These are getting heaps strong. If you would have told me a year ago I'd be doing reverse curls with 30 kilos, which I would have been like, fucking no fucking way, dude. 35 kilos for 15 reps, I would have been flabbergasted by that, because I remember previously when I first started doing these, or especially years ago when I do them inconsistently with volume training, I would do like fucking 10, 12 kilos maybe, and it was very difficult. Now I'm doing 30, and my forearms have grown quite a lot from doing this. So I sound like a broken record with these, but if you're not getting strong at reverse curls, you are missing out. These are one of those sneaky movements that people neglect, especially if you're doing volume training where it's going to be at the very end of a very, very long workout. You're not going to put much intensity into these, but I put as much intensity into my reverse curls as I do into my fucking bench press or dumbbell presses, like the big bang for your buck movements. every movement should be created equal. And I might actually make a video about that in the future, about every movement should be equal, and that's one of the beauties of high intensity training. And then, yeah, and then I also kind of was experimenting again with reverse curls or reverse rolling with this contraption I built. But again, it was a bit too light. Double hand was too light, and then even one hand was too light. It was good though for pumping on my hand. So this wasn't even so much for my forearms as much as it was for getting my thumb and fingers and hands just kind of pumped up. So I might just implement this to the end of my workouts as a finisher. I might start rolling back and forwards just to try to get blood into my hand and fatigue my hands. Because I find a lot of these lifts, they don't really fatigue my hands much. Like I hear arm wrestlers talk about when they're on the table, their hand blew up. And I'd assume that means your hand pumps up and it starts feeling weak. I've never had that sensation before from training with weights, because obviously the weights can't simulate what you feel at a table. But this is probably similar to what they talk about, where the hands start to pump up and feel weak. It's never the hands for me that give out. It's always the forearms. So I might need to start doing dead hangs. I might need to start doing these finishes to pump up my hands. Because, yeah, I mean, my hands are already a weak spot, so I need to probably do a bit more hand stuff. Maybe some rice bucket movements to really isolate the hands, because I mostly feel it in the wrist, the flexors, the pronators and stuff when I do these lifts. Man, sorry, my nose is so blocked, so I sound like a fucking cunt right now. Alright, see you guys tomorrow for more Piss and Vinegar. Bye-bye.